Now, at the time of me recording this, Diddy has been found not guilty of pretty much every single serious charge he was facing, only being found guilty of a couple charges in total. And when Donald Trump was asked about the possibility of him providing Diddy a presidential pardon, he didn't exactly confirm or deny it.
Would you ever consider pardoning him?
Well, nobody's asked. You had to be the one to ask, Peter. First of all, I'd look at what's happening. I haven't been watching it too closely.
And in the past, these two have been very closely associated, and this friendship only allegedly changed when Trump ran for president the first time. But I don't believe that, because every celebrity that speaks on politics is most likely paid by one side or another, because even though it seemed like Diddy stopped supporting Trump when he was running for his first term, he also stated that he still wore a tie that Donald Trump gifted him. So I wondered, what was the worst crime committed by someone Donald Trump pardoned? Well, I found out, and Jesus Christ, I'm not even sure that I can discuss in detail, but he's pardoned several soldiers, with one of them possibly committing a war crime, and some of them definitely pretty much looking like they for sure committed war crimes in Iraq and Afghanistan. With one guy who served with a soldier that was pardoned still being in disbelief of the pardon since he witnessed the whole ordeal during his own tour in Afghanistan, so yeah. Now, just calling someone a murderer while they were at war is kind of unfair, but you guys can read about these soldiers and decide for yourself. That being said, most of the pardons, like any president, pretty much just involve money crimes like tax fraud or evasion, rich people protecting rich people. And some people he pardoned are pretty harmless, like the guy who was illegally making whiskey, but the fact that Donald Trump and Diddy are both wealthy men from New York is probably one of the biggest factors in a possible pardon. And fun fact, did you know that investments from Diddy and a Saudi prince helped Elon Musk buy Twitter? Probably not. But historically, Donald Trump and Sean Combs have been running in the same circles in New York for decades. There's dozens of incidents where the Trump family mingle with Diddy, such as these pictures of Diddy, Donald, and Melania at the Art Life Gala in 2005. They attended a movie premiere together in 2011 when Tower Heist was released. And not only did Donald Trump attend the grand opening of Diddy's restaurant in 1997, but Ivanka Trump was allegedly attending his parties when she was around 18 and 19 years old. And the source of that story is a journalist named Chris Harris, who back in 1999, when he was 22 years old, he had been out surfing at the beach in Bridgehampton, a very wealthy area and location within the Hamptons where wealthy people are known on vacation. And at this beach, he claims he overheard two men talking about getting ready for Puffy's barbecue at his waterfront mansion in East Hampton. Now, this was back in the days of star maps in Hollywood and stuff like that, so it really wasn't a secret where most celebrities lived, at least one of their houses. So Chris quickly headed to his car and drove down to East Hampton, and his original intention was just to stand outside the house and write down the name of every guest that arrived at the party. But then, he says a blonde woman standing outside noticed him and asked if he wanted to get in. And he replied, "You know it." So she told him that to get in, he'd have to say his name was Ted Amon, and that she was his +1. Now, it's implied that this woman may not have been on the list herself, but he claims that she spotted the guest list and noticed the name Ted Amon with the +1 on it. And she must have been in the circles of very rich men in New York at some point, because Chris kind of resembled the real Ted Amon, although Ted was about 30 years older. But Ted was also divorced and reportedly had cheated on his wife, so maybe this blonde woman was one of his mistresses. Ted was also murdered a couple years later by his ex-wife's boyfriend, but that's a different story. The point is, Chris saw many things in his house, including Donald Trump's daughter. So what would be in it for Trump to pardon him? I'm not sure. But just with the vast list of wealthy individuals and politicians Donald Trump has pardoned in the past, I say it would be for some type of favor. But what could you possibly pay to a man worth over $1 billion? Now, Donald Trump's relationship with women is well known and has been well known long before he ever ran for president. And just as he was pictured at a certain man's event, he may have used Diddy's connection to do the same thing. Now, he probably wouldn't need Diddy to meet women, but being that Diddy has been doing whatever it is he does for decades, he's probably one of the best at whatever service he provides. But would it really be out of the ordinary for a president to pardon someone accused of such a thing? Well, as I said, the soldiers that he pardoned are very, very controversial, with many of them being accused of murdering unarmed civilians. And like I said, it's up to you guys to decide whether this was wrong or right. But if he pardoned someone for that, I can't help but think that Diddy's pardon wouldn't be off the table. And let's not forget, Donald Trump is a businessman, and Diddy's business connections run very deep, as he's also been known to run around with Michael Bloomberg, former mayor of New York, and not only one of the richest men in the world, but quite possibly the richest man in New York. Being around this guy before Donald Trump became president truly put you in one of the top circles on the planet, outside of maybe like a royal family or something. But Diddy also shares investment portfolios with royalty, So just considering him to be some type of entertainment mogul is not really doing justice to just how deep his connections actually go. And I know when Donald Trump speaks, it can sometimes sound scripted, but in 2012, he did describe Diddy as a good guy and a good friend of his.
I love Diddy. You know, he's a good friend of mine. He's a good guy.
Which was clear. I mean, he's been around Donald Trump, his children, his current wife, and his ex-wife. Also, Donald Trump doesn't need to pander to any one group to win votes anymore because he's already served 2 terms as president, which is the limit. And I've seen people say, oh no bro, you don't get it. He's going to try to run for a 3rd term like Franklin D. Roosevelt and he's going to win. Well, if he has the power to do that, then why even bother pandering for a vote in the first place? Now, him being found not guilty speaks to the amount of money that he actually has. And not in the sense of he's rich so he'll be able to get off because the judge is also a rich person. No, this man was indicted in federal court in New York City. A court that historically either leads to people pleading guilty or being found guilty, but not that many acquittals. Some estimates say that this trial altogether could have cost Diddy around $15 million, which I guess that's pretty much how much you need to beat a federal case because you really can't just beat the FBI. And he literally just beat every serious charge despite the fact that they said they had over 30 witnesses. Now, I'm not saying that this means that this man isn't innocent. I must admit that a lot of things he's accused of, I can't help but think that many wealthy people do the same thing and are not brought into court. Why was Diddy brought into court? I'm not sure. Maybe it had something to do with the lawsuit that Cassie filed against him just before he was indicted. Either way, he was found not guilty of whatever she accused him of doing anyway. So I do believe that there's at least a 50% chance that Donald Trump will just pardon him now. Because if he was for some reason trying to pander, Sean Combs being found not guilty of the more serious and heinous charges definitely would make it look better if he was pardoned. And not to mention, most people don't read anyway. The list of presidential pardons for every president is very extensive, and most people do not know every single person pardoned on his list. For instance, when NBA YoungBoy was pardoned by Donald Trump, that was probably the first pardon that most people had heard Donald Trump did during his presidency or any of his presidencies, but obviously he's pardoned several people. And some people just will get more publicity than others. And definitely if he does pardon Diddy, that will get a lot of publicity. So will he get pardoned? Yeah, probably. Especially if he has some type of lucrative business deal that Donald Trump can be included on after his presidential term ends, because there are very few things that Donald Trump does better than make money. And that's something that Diddy is very good at as well. And I gotta admit, I was completely blindsided by the verdict of this trial. While I didn't think that he would be serving life or anything like that, I definitely thought that he might get found guilty of racketeering, but like I said, many of the things he's accused of, I'm pretty sure you can accuse half of the world's billionaires of doing as well. But that $15 million lawyer bill definitely helped him out. A public defender could not do this for you, nor could a $10,000 lawyer, because this was not a state case. I must stress that federal cases are much different. Do you guys remember how much money and assets he offered to put up for bail when they denied him? The federal government is not easily swayed, and reports from inside the courtroom say that Diddy fell to his knees praying whenever he was found not guilty. And boy, a miracle of a second chance is the only way I can possibly describe what happened. But yeah, that's all I got for today. Thank you guys for watching.